live on Facebook for the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show, the JWB Rental Property of the Week. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me, as always, the man that I famously like to call GC because of his genius concepts, because he knows how to generate cash flows, because he's a great co-host, and because his name is Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Greg.
Hello, everybody. Fantastic to be with you. And I will agree with you that it is now somewhat famous because most people in my life, all of a sudden over the last 2 years, and now call me GC. What do you know?
That really fills my bucket.
Appreciate
that fills my bucket. And speaking of bucket fillers, we got in the chat helping you out, whatever you need, our community manager, Madison the Magnificent. Say hello, Madison.
Hello, everybody.
And we love to welcome our community. Everybody's checking in the chat. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube or listening, if you're listening on the podcast, and you want to have a good time on a Tuesday or Thursday, just go to nyais.com. Put it on your calendar. And if you're ever lonely at lunch, you can just be here with the rest of the community. This is where it all happens. You get to be part of another famous thing called
The Roll Call.
The Roll Call. Let's go. Madison, welcoming everybody in the chat. We got Lee Bishop, the MVP of the Not Your Average Investor Show community, saying good afternoon. We got the ringmaster of the community, Drew Barnhill, saying good afternoon. We got Leslie Wilson from Denver. Leslie, good to have you back. We got our usual leadoff hitter right now, batting cleanup, John Henning, saying good afternoon all. We got Tony D in the house.
All right.
Anthony Ditta from Jupiter, Florida. Who else we got? We got Leo Faraganan.
Dun, dun, na, na, na.
Faraganan.
Dun, dun, na, na.
He's saying good morning all, Bay Area, California. Go rock this show. Leo, a famous hair band drummer.
Yep.
The man. Speaking of the man everyone knows, Noah Randari. He's in the house. Hello, everyone. Another great day. It's a great day to have you with us. Noah, we got the patriarch and the matriarch of the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show, Ken and Carolyn Moline. We salute you. Wow, we nailed it this time. I'm so proud of you, buddy.
So good.
No doubt in your mind on that one.
I've been practicing.
Yeah, I like it. All right, we got Dean Curry in the house from Columbus, Ohio, past star of the show. Another past star of the show, Louis Hudnell from Milpitas, California.
Best name to mispronounce of a city.
I will never not mispronounce it again. We got Rhett Barber in the house from beautiful Atlantic Beach.
I know Rhett. I believe Rhett's a client. I know Rhett for many, many years now. Okay. And so it might be a new name to you, but it's not technically a new name to me.
I know Atlantic Beach well too, Rhett. I am a little jealous of your living situation. We got Eddie Harris from Hotlanta. He's back in the house. Welcome back, Eddie. We got Joanna Bautista hanging out with us all the way from the Philippines. Good to have you back in here, Joanna. We got the famous Marilyn Cotterman from Homosassa, Florida.
Home of the manatees, baby.
Home of the manatees. She says hi, folks. Good to have you back, Marilyn. And Carolyn checked in as well. Matriarch of the first family.
You say that so nonchalantly.
Yeah, well,
we saluted her first.
We saluted her.
Now it's just nothing.
Milady.
Milady.
We salute you once more. And, now that we're done with my second favorite segment, it's time for my favorite segment.
Let's do it.
Madison shares good news. What's the good news, Madison?
All right, everybody. Good news is it is my favorite week of the month, which means the end of the week, we have clients in-house hanging out with us, get to see some of their properties. The clients that are here today, let me grab my list real quick.
It's a lot of them.
I know we got a little bit of a full house coming.
Yeah.
We have one who's been a client since 2018. He has 2 properties with JWB.
All right.
We have Jenny Berger. She is a regular on the Not Your Average Investor Show.
Nice.
Super excited to meet her finally. She is from Chicago. She has 2 JWB properties with us as well. Nick is actually at the office today, so he's going to be here for 2 days.
I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, I met him upstairs for a little bit. He has 2 JW properties. He's been a client with us since 2018. Erica, she is from Maryland. She's coming down to hang out with us. Fun fact about her is she takes swimming lessons once a week, and she wants to get back into rollerblading and learn some new tricks.
All right.
Extreme.
Props to her because rollerblading is a no for me.
I'm approaching 40. I'm not getting on rollerblades.
And the one I think most excited to meet is the esteemed Peter James from the Commonwealth of Virginia.
The Commonwealth.
Well done, Madison. Well done. What do you do for somebody who's esteemed and from the Commonwealth?
It's a great question. You bow, don't you?
No, you tip the cap.
You tip the cap.
You tip the cap.
We haven't done that for him in a while. I've been
It's true.
really focused on the salute to the Marines. So
Well, that is incredible. I share your excitement when we get to have the folks that we're serving in the office, get to meet the team, get to share a meal with us. I mean, it brings this whole thing together. So we are all very, very fired up. Thanks for sharing, Madison.
Of course.
Madison, you know what that is? That's good news. Thank you. Before we get into the property, there's some breaking news. What is it, GC?
You know, I feel like it's my patriotic duty to share examples of just flat out fear mongering in the media when it comes to housing, flat out lack of data, lack of perception, lack of perspective, because I really feel like there's this onslaught right now of negativity when it comes to housing, when it comes to how housing performs in a recession. And I just get blasted by these articles all the time, like everybody else is. And I think this is a great forum to show some of those articles and give the actual data and give the actual perspective.
I'm into it. I'm into it.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it. And Madison, I don't know if you have that link handy, but we'll put this article up. This is from CNBC, just came out a few days ago. My dad actually sent this to me. So I appreciate all of you who send me articles or send me ideas for the show. Just so you know, we really, really appreciate it. And a lot of times we bring them up here on the show.
Your dad, the JC, Jay Cohen.
The JC. Yeah. If you like the GC, you really love the JC. And so it's the article starts off and I don't know if we have it in the chat, but maybe you want to bring it up here, Pablo.
It is in the chat.
Yeah. Let's just show what we are all being blasted by, and then let's talk about real data here.
All right, just start talking. I got this.
So the housing headline says something about how we are in a recession right now, a housing recession, not even a recession overall. We're specifically talking about a housing recession. And you know, as it goes on, it goes to say, listen, home sales are down and yada, yada, yada. But as you read more, it starts to give you these incredibly positive statistics about the housing market. And it's just like such an example of saying one thing, but speaking out the other side of your mouth, right? Like it's fear mongering in my opinion. And so look at this. Home sales fell nearly 6% in July as housing market slides into a recession. Well, this is an example. Home sales, I'm sure, did slide 6% in July. But what did they slide from?
Seasonality.
The highest ever home sales in recorded history they slid from, right? So that's where we are coming from. Be prepared when people are talking about the number of home sales dropping. That's a good thing. That has nothing to do with a housing recession because the number of sales that we actually have each month, especially here in Jacksonville, is near all-time highs right now, still. Yeah. So then I looked a little bit more, and if you read the article, what it says is, you know, we're in this housing recession. I'm wondering, how can we be in a housing recession? Because I'm using their information in this article. It says that home prices are still increasing. It says that months of inventory across the country is still historically low. And that days on market are 14 days on market. That means when you put your house on the market, it goes under contract in 14 days, still historically low. So like, this is the actual data. It's in the actual article. You got to read beyond the headline. We are clearly not in a housing recession. You know, if some of those data points were to say the complete opposite, then I would sing a different tune, but just the reality right now, a lot of fear mongering going on out there. Educate yourself, right? Read the entire article and then tune into the show because data with perspective is really going to help you make better decisions.
So headline, home sales fell nearly 6% in July as housing market slides into a recession. Data inside the article is data of not a recession. Does it come to a conclusion that says not in a recession, or they just kind of throw that headline out there and then say these points and they are playing with the idea that we are in a recession and the housing market is alive and it's sliding into it, but the housing market itself is not in a recession?
It's really funny. Actually, if you would go to the very end of the article, I'll show you exactly how it ends here. It says, you know, we're in a recession. We're definitely in a recession, all this other stuff. At the very end, it says, well, you know, housing is still going under contract within 14 days or something along those lines. It says, this is very unusual.
Got it.
That's the conclusion that they drew. It's unusual.
Got it.
Because they claim that we're in a housing recession. So there you go.
Well, you know, GC, I'm glad that you are here to be the truth teller and the not panic button hitter with all the stuff. Because as we know, news is incentivized, right? We talk a lot about incentives, right? Like how you align your incentives as a property manager with a rental property investor in order to create long-term wins. The incentives of the news are per click, right? Like they get compensated per click. And as a marketer, you and I both know that the number one thing that gets you to click on something is a headline that makes you say, "Huh," right? So like that's really what they're trying to do. And what's in the article matters less when it comes to what they are incentivized to put out there. So it's more and more important that we, yeah, sure, we can click on it, but then actually read it and make your own critical thinking and your own critical decisions, even though we are naturally as human beings going to be influenced by the headline of what we go into it reading.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think beyond reading that article, because they may actually give real facts, but those facts may lack perspective. Like if they just did an article on how home sales were falling, that could be completely factually accurate, but missing the point.
Yeah.
You know, you got to supplement this with an experienced team who has been through a recession before, who has managed 4,700 rental properties, who manages 750 million plus in real estate assets, who owns over 300 rental properties. You got to talk with people who actually have skin in the game. And that's really where you should go if you're thinking about making decisions on where hundreds of thousands of your own dollars are going. It can't be on headlines. It can't just be on an article here or there. It's got to have that perspective from an experienced team.
And that's us here in the chat. Tons of experienced folks giving some great perspective. Leo is saying in Las Vegas, prices are down 10 to 15% per my realtor there. But he said that most of the buying now are investors. They are loading up, right? So like the idea that that's happening, that's an opportunity. People are still buying. Things are still moving. There's always local market perspectives. There's always local expertise to be known. Here, the thing to know is, yes, prices have come down, but they are down from like a ridiculous historical average and are still above.
It's actually, prices are still up.
Prices are still
Prices actually went
up. From what?
Well, prices are up year over year for sure.
Okay.
But from July to August, prices actually went up.
Okay.
Yeah. I looked at their most recent data, which is different than what I was looking at 2 weeks ago when I was looking and projecting.
Yeah.
Home prices are actually up.
Okay.
Month over month.
Okay.
From July. So there's nothing to support that we're in a housing recession.
And you also believe that houses are up month over month right now, but next month there's going to be a headline that says housing is down.
So I fully expect that housing prices in Jacksonville and across the country will go down through the rest of this year. And the reason that I expect that is because that happens every year because of seasonality. That does not mean that we're in a housing recession. Like a normal year, you see housing decrease about 12% in the Jacksonville market from July to December. It happens every single year. And while that happens, overall, we still see home price appreciation year over year over year. So if you're looking at these articles right now and you're saying, you're seeing these headlines that say we're in a housing recession now, housing prices haven't fallen in Jacksonville, right? MOI, months of inventory, still incredibly low, which is a leading indicator of housing prices going up. And days on market is still incredibly low. If you're saying we're in a recession right now, what are you going to say when housing actually does decrease over month due to seasonality? You're definitely going to say that we're in a full-blown housing recession. So get yourself prepared that you're going to hear that, but that's not right. That's not real. Yeah. Like if housing was to decrease more than 12% through the rest of the year, then I would say, okay, well, we're actually seeing a seasonality adjusted decrease or decline in pricing, but we are very far from that.
And again, to give that context, the housing overall market pricing is decreasing because folks generally move in before the school year. And the people buying homes at a lower price point are people that are buying homes to occupy them.
Yes.
The investor market for purchasing homes stays flat, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you pointed that out. This is like very macro what I'm talking about. It's like normal homeowners selling their houses. Generally, they are more likely to take a discount if you approach them in December than they would be if it was in July. If you're thinking about investing in a turnkey rental property with JWB or somebody else in this space, it's not that way. And the simple reason is because JWB, the assets we own, they are rented and then they produce positive cash flow. So it makes there's no reason that we would sell and take a discount versus we could just wait a few months longer if they didn't sell for whatever reason. And then seasonality would work in our favor and home prices would go up. So for turnkey properties, this idea of maybe getting a discount towards the end of the year doesn't really apply. We're talking more macro if you're thinking about buying a house from an individual homeowner that you can move into.
Yeah, got it. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. I think we're ready to get in, but first I'm going to add in, we love Q&A, right? And Rhett, who has joined us for the first time.
So nice to see Rhett here.
Good to have Rhett here. And before I pop this as I pop this property on the screen, I'm going to ask his question because I want you all, this is a user-generated show. As always, use the Q&A, use the chat to get to know each other. Speaking of using the chat, shout out to Dean Curry, who closed on his 7th property with JWB yesterday. He says,
all right,
get them while you can.
Woohoo! Way to go, Dean. Number 7, baby.
Number 7. That's a big one, man. All right. So Rhett Farber has a question for you, GC. He says, we have not been able to purchase JWB property since I don't have past 2 years of profit tax return and thus can't get traditional mortgage. Instead, we invest with JWM in the lending program. Is there a way to purchase JWB property if only having savings and no monthly cash flow for mortgage requirements?
Great question, Rhett. And thanks so much for being a client and a private lender. And I do remember our conversations years ago, Rhett, of us talking about this ability to get finance. So I remember we had an email exchange a long time ago. So it's so good to see you here. Many times you're able to get qualified for a rental property, even if you don't have active income that you may think needs to qualify. And the reality is that, for our investment properties, if you have a low amount of debts, it doesn't take a tremendous amount of income to qualify. And the reason is because we're able to capture the rental income from the property, and that goes to offset the mortgage payment for the property. So the bank loves this. And then your income just needs to be a little bit, right? It needs to be somewhat substantial, but you don't have to have a tremendous amount of active income because the rental income is helping to offset the mortgage payment in the eyes of the bank. And so, Rhett, I don't know if it's recently that you've been told you haven't been able to get approved, but if it hasn't been recently, I would certainly encourage you to reach out to our team and jump on the phone. There are lending products available today that just flat out weren't available 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago when we were talking. And so I would highly encourage you to have that conversation. Private lending is a wonderful investment. But owning turnkey rental properties over the long haul is shown to produce a higher risk-adjusted return on investment. So I think that'd be a great move for you.
Good stuff. And just if we're talking in the abstract, right? If Rhett has capital, but what he needs is a W-2 cash flow, you've kind of explained to me the opportunity of like pairing with someone that has a W-2 and cutting some kind of deal that way, right?
Of course, that's how I started, right? In the beginning, when I started my real estate investing journey, I had credit. I didn't have any cash. I didn't have any cash in the bank. And so I used my network and I found a willing partner to provide the capital for me. And then I used my credit to buy the property. And then I made an agreement to pay that investor back and I paid them interest. And it was a way for me to start acquiring rental properties before I, had any money really. And so I offer that as an opportunity for all of you out there. Right. There's a lot. And today, as an economy, as a country, we have a lot more equity. We have a lot more savings. We have a lot more capital at our disposal than we did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 17 years ago. Yeah. And so I don't really think there's a limit to the buying of rental properties if you're willing to go out and do some things that are somewhat creative. I
got to think that practically speaking, having the capital and not having the credit is easier than having the credit and not having the capital, right? Like Rhett could probably call, I don't know if Rhett has children or not, or like a nephew or a niece that has a W-2 job that's making whatever. And it's just like, hey, listen, let's partner up on this thing. You're going to start building your, make sure that you have a trusty relationship in place. But people with W-2 income that can qualify for something like this are pretty prevalent, right?
Yeah.
They have the capital.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that he has a great relationship with in his network that he trusts, that he'd like to go into a long-term partnership with. And that's a great point for all of our private lenders. Our private lenders generally have hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital that is being lent to JWB. It's very easy to transition that capital to owning turnkey rental properties. You've done kind of the hard part. Yeah. You got the capital, right? So if anybody's a private lender and you're curious about how you could transition to owning turnkey rental properties, that this is a great starting point for our conversation with our team.
All right.
Well
Cool.
done.
Speaking of transitions, we're going to now magically whisk ourselves away here to 8414 Free Avenue, very America.
There you go.
Jacksonville, Florida, 32211. This lovely property here has a estimated ROI of 12.1%, a purchase price of $250,000, monthly rent of $1,569. It is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 1,509 square foot home. Construction status completed, leasing status rented, and appreciating at a whopping 4.6% over a market cycle. GC, what do you love about this property?
There is so much to love about this property, right? And I hope you guys I would love some feedback about the new way that we're presenting the properties of the week. I'm really trying to focus on the things that I think are really important for you to consider when you're making a turnkey rental property decision. But when I look at this property right here, here's what just jumps out to me, right? Right now, it is so hard to find an asset that is consistent, that beats inflation. If you're not beating inflation with your investment dollars right now, you're losing. You have a negative return on your investment, right? Inflation's 8.5% right now, right? It's really hard to find an asset that produces consistently, that's been a winner through pandemics, right? And other things, and have that beat inflation. So I don't think we highlight the return on investment enough. But where else are you finding an asset class that is accessible, that you don't have to be an accredited investor to invest in, that has proven consistently even through a pandemic and still earns 12% on your money every single year, right? That's why Wall Street is so fired up and in bringing $50 billion into the single family rental property space. I mean, they have access to every type of investment out there, but this is the fastest and largest growing sector of Wall Street's investments over the last couple of years. They're doing that because, where else are you going to get consistency in beating inflation, right? So let's all just appreciate the opportunity to earn a 12% return on your money, right? I don't think we love it enough.
All right. I like it, man. That's what you love.
I love a lot more, but that was just it. That was just a little bit.
You want to share some
Yeah, I want to talk.
You want to share some more?
I want to talk a little bit more. All right. So the fact that this thing's rented already, really cool. Number one, it's completed, already rented, has a long-term resident in place. This resident just signed their lease. They're going to be in there for another 3 years.
That's beautiful.
Right. Back to consistency. And then something else for all of our leases, right? These multi-year leases. I don't know if folks understand, but there's built-in rent increases. So I went and I just looked for this home. The rent on this home is going up to $1,606, and that's starting in June of next year. And it's not just this home. This is every JWB property that you purchase, right? We have these built-in rent increases along the way. So for all those reasons, plus one more, that little note there at the bottom here, we still have our incentive here, which is running out of time. We started to talk about this about 2 weeks ago. We announced it on our client only call and our market update. And so JWB is helping out with the interest rates to bring them down for you guys. We are buying down the interest rates for those clients who purchase new properties. And we are doing this for every client who purchases a home and as many homes as they purchase, as long as they close by October 15th. So if you work your way back, it's August 25th right now. It generally takes 30 to 60 days to close a loan, depending on how fast you are getting your documentation in. So if this is something you want to take advantage of, this is something you need to take action on either with this property or with other properties in the JWB portfolio. And it needs to be quick. It needs to be now or in the next few days, or else you're just going to have a hard time of getting that closing timeline on time.
All right.
And now I'm done.
So it's a lot of things to love. GC.
I mean, I can go on.
I mean, I'm just gonna recap for now, since you're such a lover today. You love the fact that you can beat inflation with a easily accessible investment that is also returning 12.1% and is very consistent risk-adjusted return. That's asset class wide, but you love it today. You're feeling loving
Absolutely
about that. You love the fact that this home is already complete. It's already rented and has a brand new 3-year lease in place. That's beautiful when we always talk about this idea that The tough moments of owning this rental property is during the turnover. So you're walking in knowing that for 3 years, this thing isn't going to turn over, not going to be a lot of problems because it's recently finished. And on top of that, there's a rent escalation clause in a year. That's going to get you a little bit more money.
Mm-hmm. Let's sprinkle a little more love on it.
And apart from that, we'll sprinkle a little more love for you that this one-time incentive that JWB never does. I've only seen it one other time since I've been around, but that's another little incentive, right? Buy down your points, lock in a attractive interest rate for the next 30 years. That's going to pay off for a long time.
Should produce somewhere around up to $600 a month of an additional positive cash flow to you, and an additional increase to your overall return on investment of about 0.5%, which is quite substantial over the long haul that you'll be owning this property.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. All right. Well, we got some Q&A happening, so I'm going to go right into the Q&A because we love questions from our community.
Love it.
My friend, Bob Wiesner, is asking, random property management question for you. What is considered best practice? How often or when should the property management firm enter the home for a routine inspection of the interior? For example, annually, only when the tenant is turning over, only when there is a suspicion or a problem, etc. GC, what's the best practice there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've done all of those things. Our property management team has done all of those things over the years. And I've done, and I own over 300 rental properties. So we've been able to test out what really moves the needle, right? Because there's a lot of time and money and energy that your property management team can spend actually going and inspecting these properties. And if we're going to do that, I want to make sure it moves the needle for you, Bob, right? So we actually did a study, right? Long time ago, JWB actually spent the time and money and energy and resources that we could be doing anything to drive a better return on investment for you. And we spent the time, money, energy, resources to actually go and inspect homes. And we did annual inspections. And then, we were at a conference and a really trusted source came up to us. And this was a long time ago. And he said, you know what? We stopped doing inspections. And I'm like, you did what? And he's like, yeah, we stopped doing inspections. I'm like, okay. I always thought that, doing an inspection would actually lead to lower maintenance costs. Are you telling me that doesn't apply? He's like, nope. He's like, we did the research. They had their own portfolio of properties. They did it for a number of years. They actually tracked what maintenance costs were for the properties they inspected versus the ones they didn't inspect. And he's like, the conclusion we reached was that it was not moving the needle. Maintenance costs were not decreased. And then he's like, well, I could put a lot more resources into other things to help increase the return on investment for our clients. And I was like, well, that sounds really great, but I don't really believe it. Right? Because a lot of people who are investing in rental properties and property manager, working with a property manager, it's one of the first things I say, well, how often are you going to inspect my home? So we were like, well, we have these rental properties. Why don't we test it ourselves? We did the same thing. So for years, we did not do inspections for JWB owned rental properties. And we tracked and we said, okay, what were the move out costs? What were the general expenses along the way? Did maintenance costs come down for the ones that we renovated? The ones that we inspected versus the ones that we didn't? We cross-sectioned those off. And, just like my trusted friend said, there was no difference. There was no noticeable difference. And so from that point, we decided that we were not just going to do inspections just because it felt good, right? It's a kind of a contrarian stance, to be quite honest. But we realized that we could actually provide better returns on investment by focusing those resources elsewhere. And so those other places that we focused our resources were on marketing and leasing and available homes, which means that we actually have teammates that go out into every single home on a routine basis and make sure that those homes, if there's some reason that they're not renting in very short order, that we have eyes and ears and we're fixing whatever that issue is. And most property management companies do not do any of that. And so what we were able to do is actually drop our days on market, right? And we now we'll rent over 1,200 homes this year with an extremely low days on market. And it's just a great sign of actually using your resources in a place to actually accomplish a better return on investment. So I know it's a long-winded answer there, Bob, but best practices, I believe best practices are do the thing that provides the best return on investment. And we haven't seen any data. And we've looked at this with our own portfolio and have other trusted resources who have done it as well. We haven't seen any data to show that inspections actually lead to lower maintenance costs.
I love when we talk about a spoke of the data flywheel, right? Man, I love that stuff. So counterintuitive, right? Like you would think that it's more inspections, the better that they're going to keep track. But at the end of the day, a regularly scheduled inspection means I know that this is going to happen. I'm going to put the lipstick on the pig for that one day. And, that's going to happen. So then you found that there is no data that supports that it actually moves the needle. You redirected it into what does move the needle. You said marketing. I'm just going to clarify. You're talking about marketing vacant homes to get people
Yes,
in,
thank
not
you.
like marketing and like selling more crap.
No,
Right,
we
so
didn't
like-
use that to put the show on.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need more budget, I'll take it. So marketing vacant homes, right? So getting more eyeballs on the vacant homes, support of making sure that nobody leaves a little surprise in the restroom in between visits or something like that, makes it stinky. When people are when people are going
This
door
is
to
two
door.
shows in a row that you've had some
I-
bad humor
I didn't
thrown into this.
I didn't say the word. But like if you walk into a home and it smells bad, you're like, I don't want to live here.
That is
Right. So like
it's gotta smell good.
some eyes on there. Anything to the fact, GC, like I know that there is some nuance here, right? Like for you all, you're able to do this because you have 4,500 homes in one area and you have service people around there and you have, teammates that are in and out, going out. So if one of the properties that happens to be adjacent to another property, you see a telltale sign of something being wrong, you can then raise a flag and say,
100%.
I want to go in there. So if we're talking about best practices for Bob here, yes, inspections don't move the needle, but is there also, you need to have a certain amount of like eyeballs in general that are looking for
Yes.
warning signs as well.
Yeah, we have the ability to make this decision because of our scale, whereas normal property management companies won't have the ability to redirect the resources this way
Mhm.
because you do have to have a presence in the neighborhoods. And, we manage 4,700 rental properties, and that's in just 4 neighborhoods in Jacksonville. So you go down these streets, you see a JWB for rent sign, or you see another JWB home because we renovate and build largely the same way. I mean, it's very noticeable that JWB has a presence here. With 4,700 rental properties, I'll be honest with you, there's always some maintenance issue going on,
Yeah.
right? There's our vendor staff is always in the areas and they work really well with our management team. It's an expectation for them to bring issues to us that they may see, right? If somebody's parking on the lawn, right? Or there's another issue, right? That information is relayed back to us. So yes, there should be some presence in the area. If you have scale, it's easy to do. If not, if you're working with a lower number of properties under management in that management company, they're probably going to have to do it the old fashioned way and go and do inspections or take routine trips throughout the neighborhood.
Yeah. Maybe have like an office in the area or something like that, like a presence.
Yeah. And I did want to just throw one more thing out there,
Mhm.
right? Not only did we not see the data showing that maintenance cost was coming down because of turns, specifically because of those inspections, but we've been doing this for a long time now. I mean, I don't know. It's been this way for 7 years, maybe. I don't know. It's been a long time. What we have been able to show is that our maintenance cost percentage overall is coming down. It's continuing to come down, right? It's a
Okay.
great credit to our property management team, a great credit to our construction team. So we're able to get where we want to go with keeping maintenance costs low, right? And continuing to come down. You just inspections don't necessarily move the needle to make that happen.
Interesting. So Gerard Wendling had a question. Does that include turnover costs? It sounds like not having inspections has kept maintenance costs low and reduced turnover costs as well, because you have devoted the
Mhm.
resources from inspections into lowering turnover costs.
Yeah, exactly. If you do inspections in most property management companies, they're going to charge you for those. So those would be another form of a fee that would go against your return on investment. So yeah, so this would be including the numbers I'm sharing with you are including all property management cost, all maintenance cost, any types of fees for sure.
Amazing. Bob says, excellent. Thank you for the informative answer. You're welcome, Bob. Happy to answer questions. Love the Q&A. And we got one here from the MVP of the community,
Lee Bishop.
Lee Bishop. He's the MVP because he likes to dial in on the numbers. So he's gone to, if you're listening on the show, if you go to jwbinventory.com, you can download the spreadsheet that he is diving into like deeper cells here. If you're here on the show live, Madison has shared it in the chat. But Lee is asking, Gregg, this $200 water treatment fee is somewhat new. Can you talk about this, please?
Yeah, great question, Lee. This is not on every property evaluation because not every property has water treatment fees that would need to be done for that property. But just so you know, it's not new to property evaluations in general for JWB. So another just kind of landmine to avoid if you're buying turnkey rental properties, or if you're buying properties yourself or using a real estate agent. You got to think about all of these fees that are going to be required to make sure that your resident has a wonderful renting experience. And so, water treatment fees might be something that your property needs because of that area where there might be hard water and you need to make sure that there's a water softener. We know enough about the areas that we're in because we've been investing here for 17 years to know those areas where, listen, if we just do the bare minimum and build a home and it's got hard water in that area, that over time it's going to have higher maintenance costs for you, and it's going to have a worse resident experience. So this water treatment fee is us knowing this in advance, making sure that we are doing the things to make sure that the water experience for your resident is up to our standard. And many times that will be including a water softener in some of those areas. So when we do that, that's okay. We just put it into the property evaluation so you know it ahead of time, so you're not surprised by this annual bill that comes your way. And as long as our returns on investment include that and they meet our standard, it's a wonderful thing for you to actually have, additional things that are going to make your resident happier, hopefully, over time. So yeah, so this isn't new. You'll see other things like water treatment fees. You'll see if there's an HOA, which is a homeowners association fee, you're going to see that included on this line item. Sometimes there are fees that come along with certain septic systems. You would see that on this line item. So just key takeaway, though, is think about the other things that are required to make sure your resident has a great experience, and make sure you're including that in your numbers before you make the decision to invest.
There you go, man. Thanks for the thorough answer there. Lee, great question as always, bringing
I feel like I've been very thorough today.
You've been Gregory Cohen thorough. Chris Gonzaga from the beautiful Hudson Valley in New York asks, when choosing the property of the week, are there specific qualities that make that determination?
Yes. Thank you for asking that. We've never been asked that. Like, how do I determine the property of the week? Tell us. Well, the first thing is that it's a lot quicker to the time that we do the show today than it was when we started. Back in the day, if you go back 6 months ago, a year ago for the property of the week, I would actually plan it out like weeks in advance, and I would have a property of the week. And the problem with that is that those properties many times sold by the time we got onto the show. And so we changed that up. So really on Monday of every week, I sit down and I look at our existing inventory, and I look for something that of course is going to have high returns on investment. I'm also looking for something that is that we have very similar like properties of, because I know many times that the property that we show you here on the property of the week will be sold, even though I only pick it like a few days in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to make sure that if you really like this property on Free Avenue and you give my team a call, that we're setting everybody up for success, so they can say, well, you didn't like this one on Free Avenue, but here's the property right next door that is a similar number. So I'm always looking for something that is very similar to make sure this is a great experience for folks. And I'm looking for something that's a teaching moment too, right? Today, talking about how the home is already rented. And I wanted to make sure that I taught everybody about how rent increases are already included in the property that I chose for the property of the week. So so it's really kind of those three criteria: returns. I'm looking for, to make sure there's a teaching moment, and that it's very reflective for anybody that does want to purchase a property like this.
Yeah, because let's just face it, once it's the property of the week, people want it. I mean, people were fighting over it a few weeks ago. I thought, man, we're going to have to calm everybody down. Yeah, thought somebody was going to pull out some pepper spray or something in the chat.
This would probably be a good time to tell everybody that this one actually sold. This one actually sold. I just found out, yesterday. So this one actually sold. But guess what, guys? I've got another one. If that should happen, I always have one prepared for you. So we've got another one here, very similar. So you can see kind of like the beauty in action here as we're talking about how we prepare for the properties of the week.
Let me see if I can pull up this other one. Is this the other one, Firestone, right here?
Firestone, baby.
All right, cool, man. We got Firestone. This is the who was on deck for the POTW, the esteemed POTW slots. So like we said, very similar numbers here.
Very similar numbers here, right? You look at your return on investment, over 12% returns. We talked about how much that is, that should just be appreciated in today's investing environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that jumped out to me about this one is it's already completed. It's already rented, has a long-term resident in place with those rent escalations built in. So yeah, so if you liked Free Avenue, Firestone is built the exact same way. And so hopefully it's a good experience for the person who decides to purchase it.
Another great American name, Firestone. All right. Great question by Chris. Really appreciate that. Marilyn Cotterman from Homosassa, Florida has a question.
Home of the manatees.
Home of the manatees. Doesn't JWB handle many maintenance issues over the phone with residents?
Marilyn, thank you so much for highlighting that. This is another way that you should really hold a certain standard for your property management company, because it's not just about taking care of maintenance issues. It's how do we increase your return on investment? We had this last time we were here.
Yeah, this happens.
We had the lights go out. They're motion censored and we're up here and we haven't moved around enough. That's funny.
I'll be more animated.
We got to pay the bills around here.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I'll be more animated. I'm sorry. It's my beat.
So yeah, so it's not just about doing the work. It's how do you produce the best return on investment for our clients. And one great way that is just unheralded, it's not talked about in the property management space, but it saves tens of thousands of dollars for our clients, is the percentage of maintenance issues that are handled over the phone. And I don't have that number right. 20% of all of our maintenance issues. Melissa, thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm getting the up-to-date information.
Should we just bring her on to you?
We will soon. We will soon.
All right. We're here in front of a live audience.
We are.
We need it.
This is fantastic when there's questions that I am not equipped to answer. So Melissa, who's the director of our property management team, is here. And so thank you guys for being here today. She let us know that 20% of our maintenance issues are actually handled over the phone, which is incredible for our clients, because guess how much it costs a client in a maintenance fee when JWB is able to work with the resident to solve it over the phone? Cero.
Cero?
You like that one?
Dios mío.
Ay, Dios mío. We're just bonkers over here today in whatever language we're talking about. Yeah. So this is awesome. I mean, this can save you this saves our clients tens of thousands of dollars. Ask your property management team, what percentage of your maintenance work orders are solved over the phone? You will probably be underwhelmed with that answer.
All right, cool. And if their answer is cero, you got to find another property management company. Madison also coming in with some stats. She DM'd me here in the chat saying the maintenance department successfully troubleshot 675 work order requests last quarter. That's 675 less work orders needing to be opened, contributing to a $61,836 cost savings for your client.
Woohoo! That was awesome.
Good stuff, man.
Thank you all for the pull of that information on the spot. You guys are rock stars.
You know, JC, I'm really starting to believe in this whole team thing.
Yeah, we kind of have a good team. I mean, I don't know. We haven't really talked about it enough.
Pretty decent. All right. Old friend of mine over here from the southern part of France.
New spot.
Anonymous Attendee says, hello from Anonymous, as Pablo says. So, you know, we know that I know the correct pronunciation. La correct pronunciation.
Wonderful.
Is there a way I can navigate the live shows in Facebook if I miss the Zoom calls? It used to be easy before to see listings of the full shows. Now I only see smaller snippets in Facebook.
You want to take this?
I'll
Mr.
take
Distribution of the content?
I am Mr. Distribution. Thank you, Anonymous. Merci. So what we do is we broadcast live into the Facebook group. So if you're part of the Facebook group, you can see it in there. Exactly 6 days after the show goes live, we post it on YouTube, and we also post it onto the podcast. So if you want to watch it, you can go to the JWB YouTube channel, and you can put Not Your Average Investor Show on YouTube or JWB on YouTube.
Yeah, I think JWB.
You'll both work.
Oh goodness, I shouldn't have stepped on your toes there, Mr. Distribution.
So yeah, you can watch both of those. And yes, you are right. My team is also hard at work parsing out little golden nuggets so that you can see them on social media and whatnot, but really, really love that feedback. We're actually thinking about going live. We're debating whether to go live into the Facebook group the Facebook feed or the YouTube channel and just go straight live into YouTube. So since you are a consumer of it in this format, I would love to hear your feedback here in the chat. If you could let me know where we should go live. I'm assuming that during the time we used to not go live into the Facebook group. We used to go live into the JWB Facebook page. And I'm guessing that that's where you were seeing it. So any kind of like insight on behavior that you can tell me that makes it easier for you to consume it since you're already doing it, my team will make it happen. So please let me know in the chat. I would really, really appreciate that. Anonymous. All right. Eddie Harris from Hotlanta is asking, because of the large number of homes owned by JWB, are you able to get better insurance rates than an individual owning property in the same area, but not with JWB? Thanks.
We are able to get better insurance rates. I don't think it's necessarily because of the scale that we have. You know, we do manage 4,700 homes, but each one of those policies is owned by an individual investor. And so the reason that we're able to get better insurance rates or better overall insurance experience is really due to the quality of the team that we have. So we work mainly with the Ritchie Insurance Group, who I'm sure many of you in the group know. She's a wonderful teammate here at JWB and has been an insurance partner for me personally, for the team, and for all of our clients for many, many years. And so many of you don't understand all of the stuff that goes on in the background of insurance that, you know, a provider like Whitney and her team just handles for you. So it's not just about the premium, which they are lower than what you can get out there many times. But it's like the amount of inspections that our clients, meaning like insurance inspections that the insurance companies may require. They require less because what Whitney does is she takes our overall portfolio of our rental properties over the last 17 years and the 4,700 homes that we have, and she gives them real data, and she sees the low maintenance cost and the low number of claims. And she goes to that insurance provider and she says, you're not working just with a normal homeowner here. These homes are professionally managed by this company. So let's not make them spend $55 to go do a 4-point inspection to do this, or let's not have to disrupt the resident to like get somebody to go in the home just to satisfy some insurance requirement. So there is a lot that's done in the background to make the experience better, even more than just the lower fees due to our scale.
It's a great couple of tidbits, man.
Yeah.
Really good. Who asked that question? That was a good question. That was Eddie from Hotlanta asking the question. A couple of interesting facts about Ritchie. She is the original Flo from Progressive. She's also the reason why Greg and I sit here before you. She was the connector that introduced us. And I worked out of her office yesterday.
I think you brought it full circle there.
Yeah, full circle. She's one of my best friends. Speaking of fascinating facts, Ken Moline put here in the chat, we bought a home on Free Ave in February 2020 for $183,000. $250,000. So this is the property of the week that we just highlighted. That's $250,000. Ken bought a home on that same block for $183,000 just a little bit over 2 years ago. So $250,000 is an increase that indicates appreciation of over $60,000 in just a little bit over 2 years. A good example of home price appreciation in Jacksonville during COVID.
And kudos to you, Ken, and to Carolyn for making a decision. Let's go back to the decision that they made. What was that? Was that February of 2020 or March of 2020? I think he said.
Yeah, February 2020.
What was going on? Were people scared in March of 2020 or February, whenever in 2020?
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
it took an amount of intestinal fortitude, to make a decision like Ken made and Carolyn made. And I just want to applaud them. We didn't know Ken and Carolyn before a few years ago, and they have become hold such a special place in our hearts here for the show,
big time,
and for the community and for JWB. And I just wanted to recognize that it wasn't easy for them to take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
It's wonderful that they have benefited so much from home price appreciation. I think we should mention that, that's not normal, right? Like it's not normal to have that much home price appreciation. But what is normal is when you start to invest like they did, you get all 5 profit centers working for you. One of those is home price appreciation. And people for the long haul discount home price appreciation when it comes to factoring which market they're going to invest in. So not only did it take a lot of intestinal fortitude to make a decision to invest, they live in California. They didn't know us. They invested in their turnkey rental properties here in Jacksonville. They did it at a time that was challenging. but they also kept that focus on all 5 profit centers, and they're benefiting handsomely from it. I'm just so happy for their success.
You know, we mentioned this a week ago, right? Like we're planning for this TV show, and Gregg and I are like thinking of interesting stories, and we've been like workshopping this stuff, and we literally were just talking about the Molines.
Yeah.
And something that, speaking of intestinal fortitude, right? Like you can go back and see Ken's episode. We should probably have him back again.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's a fascinating story. Ken, we're going to reach out to you, have you back. But the way that Ken has grown his portfolio, I find completely fascinating. The idea that he was at a place where in his retirement didn't have enough cash flow, thought enough outside of the box to get a reverse mortgage from his home in Silicon Valley, to then buy multiple homes in Florida, to get like really good cash flow. The one thing that I hadn't conceptualized is the idea that there must have been a decision in there of, but this is the house that my kids may have grown up in. I've been wanting to give this down to my kids. And I'm sure that people, when they're thinking, where do I get money to invest in rental properties? And they're like, I don't want to get a reverse mortgage, especially in Ken's, period of life. That's when you're thinking about it. Right. And the idea to think that instead of handing down the house that my kids grew up in, that at some point when I go, they're going to have to like either figure out who gets the house or how they're going to sell it and split the profits. The fact that he's going to then hand down a portfolio of cash flowing homes that nobody really needs to touch. They can just sit there and keep building family wealth is something that I don't think we really talked about until we started discussing this whole narratives for the TV show.
And it's such a beautiful story. It's not only Ken too. It got me thinking about other clients. When we sit down and we build out their buying plan and we ask them why they're investing, many times they'll say, you know what, I want to own this number of many rental properties because I've got this many grandchildren. Right. And I want to make sure that I'm not just here to earn a return on investment today. It's because I want to equip them with a passive income generation tool for them for generations. And even more than that, I want to teach them something different than what they are learning about finances in our overall economy, which is when you get to retirement, it's not about this massive number that you're trying to shoot for. It's like, how much income are you generating from your assets along the way? And so it is amazing to see Ken and Carolyn. And it's a story that I think relates so well with our team, with others out there. And I think we got to get over this fear of like passing down real estate to our heirs. Like it's not that complicated, guys. You can set it up in advance to make sure that, you've got the right legal structure. You've got this prepared in advance. I mean, it's certainly, in my opinion, it's not something that should preclude you from taking advantage of something that you think is the right asset for you today and that you think is the right asset for your heirs in the future.
Love that. I thought we were going to say it's not just Ken. I thought we were going to say it's not just Ken. It's also Carolyn.
Yeah, I know. I'm
sorry. Who we affectionately call the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show.
We salute you.
We salute you. All right. That brings us full circle. This was a good one, man.
Yeah, this is fun.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this show today. This Tuesday, we got a fascinating dude coming up. Nate Dotson.
Yeah.
He is a specialist. He owns crowdfundinglawyers.com. And while he is just a amazing lawyer that does all sorts of different transactions, he's really just built out this niche on all forms of crowdsourcing, from GoFundMe's and Kickstarters all the way to like, how do you crowdfund a single family home? How do we bring down the entry point to get into this asset class that is something often the first thing that we hear, right? So we're going to bring in an expert to talk about how in the future you may or may not be able to buy a single family home like this for less.
Yeah. Really, really interesting. I think big moves are being made in this space, especially in the next coming years. And it's going to be great to have an expert like Nate here on the show with us to kind of explore what's here now and what potentially is coming.
Yeah, man. I know you've been looking into this.
I love this stuff. I can't wait.
And more than anything, I just want to thank our community. Right? Just hanging out with us here on a Thursday, watching us sweat and say dumb things and go bonkers and say some smart things too, hopefully. But it's a testament to you that we get these great questions, that we're able to talk for 55 minutes about a rental property and give some education. And the fact that you take a little bit of time out of your Thursday to be here just means the world to me. So if you're watching on YouTube, listening on the podcast, I hope that you join us one of these days because it's special out here.
It is. It
GC,
is.
I'll give you last word.
I wanted to echo the questions are the biggest thing I think in the last 2 months of the show or whatnot, just the quality of the questions and, the names and the faces, both returning folks are asking questions and some new folks are stepping out like Rhett today and asking a question. That's like the fulfillment of what this show is supposed to be. So we appreciate you guys. We love that you're here. Special ask of you, actually, if you're watching or you're listening on the podcast, we don't have a ton of reviews yet on our podcast, and would love for you to just, go to that little section on Apple or Spotify or wherever and just post a review of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. It's easier on your phone. So you can just go there. It's just on the show, wherever you find your podcast. It's a little bit more difficult, I found out, if you do it on desktop, but just pick up your phone, find us on the podcast. If you're not there yet, and leave us a review if you would be so kind.
That would be very kind of you. And you know what else it would be if you were to do that? Not an average move. We'll see you next week.